Greetings. Welcome to the DragonCon Urban Fantasy Track's first post-holiday panel. We're very glad to have you with us, whether you are watching live with us as we record this, or if you watch this panel later on. Thanks very much for joining us as we discuss Legacies, primarily Season 2, but, sometimes people may want to reference Season 1, and that is fine as well. So what we're going to do first is I will have each of my wonderful panelists introduce themselves. And we'll begin with you, Anna.
Oh, hi. So my name is Anna Puerta, and I am a volunteer on the Urban Fantasy track, and I have an MFA in film and television.
Thank you. Kristen.
My name is Kristen Jackson. I'm a graphic designer, and I work in the film industry. I've been a part of the Urban Fantasy track now for maybe the past 5 years, something like that.
At least. It's been at least 5, maybe, right. Yeah. Great. Thank you. Siska.
I am the Fantasy Literature Track Director with DragonCon, as well as the co-host on Blasters and Blades, which is a podcast on sci-fi and fantasy. It used to be called Sci-Fi Shenanigans, but we're adding fantasy in, so we changed up the name some. So.
I didn't realize that it had been a different name. So cool. And Diana.
Hi, I'm Diana, but I write as D.R. Perry, and I'm a YA author. I write a lot of magical schools and also urban fantasy, contemporary fantasy sort of settings.
And thanks very much for all of you for joining us. And what I'd like to do first to talk about the show is that one of the things that struck me as I was watching it was that we were getting a lot more, I guess, background on and a lot more just stories that focused around some of the other characters rather than only only Hope or only the Salvatore twins. We in the first season we got a little bit on the other characters, but it seemed as though this season there was more room to do some, more of that with more people. And which of the characters of those other characters did you enjoy learning more about this season? And also, this is kind of a 3-part question. Also, who's your favorite character overall? And has that changed since the first season, or has that been pretty much the same, all along? And Anna, we'll begin with you.
Oh, of course. Okay. So for the first part, this might be a weird answer, but I'm going to say the Necromancer. Listen, his ice cream parlor with Chad and all of that, that was so funny, and I really enjoyed it.
Okay.
Yeah, his whole background on getting kicked out and trying to build himself back up and all that, I thought it was really fun. So for my favorite character, that's really hard. I'm not sure. I think. Okay. You might have to come back to me on that one.
Okay, we'll come back to you on that one. Kristen, what about you?
Well, I've said in the past that I got into the show originally just because I wanted to see more of Alaric. So he was kind of my favorite character from the beginning. I was going to say the Necromancer, but since Anna stole my fallback answer would be Landon. I found this character very compelling right from his introduction, and then exploring more of this Phoenix background of his has been interesting this year. And so I really enjoyed seeing them develop him as a character that's not playing off of other characters as much, that he's becoming his own person on the show, independent, not necessarily, having his storyline so closely attached to the others.
Okay, great. Siska.
Well, I actually really enjoyed the twins. Oh, we have more
Yay,
There's Mark.
Mark.
So, do you want me to continue, or should we?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay.
We'll get
So,
to Mark.
I think I kind of come to the Legacies with the experience of I didn't watch, but maybe a season or two of the originals, and the show that predates the originals. I only saw
Diaries.
2 episodes ever of.
Okay.
So for me, they're all very fresh, very new. So I'm sure like everybody knows about what goes on with the Salvatore twins. I feel like there's background there that I don't have, that I'm learning, and I'm enjoying it. So I've really enjoyed that. I think probably one of my favorite episodes was the Minotaur one, where they were trapped inside the video game.
Mm-hmm.
That was a lot of fun. And they brought a lot more depth to the twins this past year, particularly, I cannot remember her name right now, the blonde one.
Liz.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, which I thought was really neat, because I think just playing off the fact that, yeah, everybody kind of has this image and this stereotype, and yeah, sometimes she plays to it, but there's more to her than that, and her trying to figure out how she wants to balance out being who she is after this long history of playing to a stereotype is interesting. So,
Right. Okay. Yeah, I have developed a fondness for Lizzie myself this particular season. So,
well, last season I kind of wanted to smack Lizzie around a lot.
Yeah, didn't we all? I mean, yeah.
I have a lot of feelings about Lizzie, but
what?
I have a lot of feelings about Lizzie, but a lot of them are connected to Caroline too. So,
Oh yeah. Oh, I know.
she's
Yeah,
like,
and not just Caroline, but when she talks, I think I'm hearing. Gosh, why is her name escaping me? Hope's mom.
oh yeah,
You know, and
you said it.
when I hear her voice, that's who I think of. So, Diana, what about you?
I really liked what they did, where we had this sort of primary love triangle, where with the memory loss, and it was very soap opera, and I was like, oh, kind of bored. I actually really loved what they did with Alyssa and Caleb, and with now I can't remember the werewolf's name. The poor fellow, and the necromancer really like poured accelerant all over that. And again, like the necromancer was really a great catalyst in this season, and he had a very unexpected sort of climb back up to get back to where he had been, and it was very entertaining. But then I saw that, and he comes back, and he's the necromancer again, and he's got all this power, and he's got all these goons, and he's got zombies, and then he throws a monkey wrench into just teenagers being teenagers, which I feel like is really what YA in a fantasy setting should be about. That the magic, or that the antagonist uses kind of mischievous means to just mess with their normal lives in ways that the necromancer probably doesn't remember what it's like to be a teenager.
Right. Yeah.
So
Nor would he care either.
Yeah. So, it's. I thought it was pretty cool. Whereas you had the other antagonist in the season was Kai, and he did a great job being very mustache twirly in that alternate world.
Yeah.
But I feel like Alyssa and Caleb, they're the sort of crush he has on her, and he's vying for her attention, and she loves MG, and that whole business. It was entertaining drama, whereas the memory loss Landon stuff was not as entertaining drama.
Right. And the thing is, you have to acknowledge when you're in a school with a bunch of teenagers, you have to acknowledge some of the stuff that teenagers go through. So whether it gets to the point where which it did at one point get to like that for me after the first 3 episodes or something, I was like, okay, well, I think I'm going to switch over and watch something else for a few days. It was because it was just a little too much of that one thing. But you have to acknowledge it. You do.
Mm-hmm.
I really think so. And Mark, so I'm going to have you introduce yourself, and then you can answer the question, which my question is actually a few different parts, and that is, that this season we got to see a bit more of not just their backstories, but of some of the other characters besides Hope or the Salvatore twins being,
Saltzman.
but yeah, just more of their development, seeing them more in a in a bigger role than they had played in the first season. And what I'm curious about is, which did you enjoy seeing the most? And then who's your favorite character, and has that out of all of them, and has that changed since season 1? And go ahead, tell us who you are. Some of us know, some of us do not.
So I'm Mark Spile, and see, I'm going to graduate with my MFA in popular fiction. That's what I just left from my first class there, and for my last residency. So I graduate Wednesday, so I'm excited about that.
Congratulations!
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So, but I'm also a filmmaker, indie film, and stuff like that. And I have a close podcast called Genretainment, where we interview different creators. So, and I have, I think, like Siska said, similar to her, I didn't watch Vampire Diaries or the originals. I caught a couple episodes of originals when it first started. I never really,
Together.
yeah, but I never really watched it at all. And then Legacies started, and I watched it when it premiered, and I got kind of hooked because I love Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Angel, and it has a similar vibe to it in a way. And so I've been hooked on the show and watching every episode as they come out ever since. So I'm gonna miss Supernatural, but at least we got Legacies still.
Yeah, there you go.
So your questions were, did you say favorite episode or favorite person?
No, your favorite character, and is there one of the ones that is more of a secondary character rather than one of the primaries that you have enjoyed watching more of this season? And then who's your favorite character overall, and is that any different than it was for season 1?
I would say I think Caleb has grown a bit in this season. So I've grown up. I didn't really like him very much at all in season 1, but he's grown on me in this season. Alaric has always been a character I've enjoyed. I went back and started watching Vampire Diaries, so I liked him even more because he was a character in that show.
Yeah.
Also, I don't know if I like him any better than last season, but it's always kind of bouncing between him and Hope a lot of times. And but Caleb as a secondary character has grown on me quite a bit. And I always kind of like NG too. I mean, he's fun.
NG's fun. I love the stuff with NJ at home.
Yeah, he's so cute.
Sorry, I'm probably getting ahead of myself. I loved what they did with the season where they showed the in-between school break. And because a lot of times, even Harry Potter did it, where they kind of just all glossed over, you go home. Okay. I had for varying reasons, a year in boarding school. You go home, yes, but you don't stop being a teenager. And if it's urban fantasy, the magic doesn't stop. It does not switch off just because you left Hogwarts or the Salvatore school's on school break. And I really liked that. And there is that connection with kids who, if you've talked to them when they go to a boarding school, where they have people where they're feeling very lonely, out of touch when they're at home because they don't live there. All their friend groups normally are other kids who they've gone to school all year together and things like that. So they do reach out more to each other, or they feel disconnected, and it creates these really strong bonds also with their people that are their peer group for 9 months of the year. So I thought it was really nice and enjoyed it. And I think that's actually what got me into watching it, was how are they going to do that aspect of it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And Anna, you wanted me to come back to you. Do you?
So I think MG is probably my favorite, but I do go back and forth too, because I also have moments where I'm like, Alaric is my favorite, It's like, do I feel like a teen today or do I feel like an adult today? And then my
Right. Well, now I want to take a poll. A few of you have said you didn't watch, but maybe a couple of episodes of either Vampire Diaries or the originals. How many of you watched both of those shows? Okay, so
Well,
half of us did, and half of us didn't.
I
That
watched
is
more
just
of the
interesting.
Vampire Diaries than I did of the originals. I only made it through one episode of the originals. I'm kind of obsessed with YA stuff. I mean, obviously. So,
The originals was a little too much.
I was watching a lot of other shows at the time it came out, and I was just like, well, I'll spend my time on this other stuff instead.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Same
Well,
here.
that makes sense.
Unfortunately, there are only so many hours in a day.
Yeah. For now, none of us, are capable of changing that. So we'll see. Yeah. Good luck, Marks. Now that school's almost done, right?
Yeah.
Now we have some very entertaining villains on this show, which is also kind of interesting in terms of, even when they're doing terrible things, they're kind of entertaining or saying, they get some of the great lines of the episode or whatever. And a couple of you have already talked about the necromancer, but were there, so that you probably partially answered this, but the villains on the show, or even the Malvor monsters, which were, what were some of your favorites and why? Well, when it comes to villain, pick one. If we have monsters, you can do more than that, I suppose. And Kristen, we'll start with you this time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for me, the necromancer was I always, like I've said before, I always gravitate towards the villains, and especially the entertaining villains. And I appreciate them giving him a backstory, because that was just hysterical. And the actor, I can't remember his name, but I was trying to think what he was reminding me of somebody. And I was trying to think, who is this guy reminding me of? And it wasn't quite Beetlejuice. But that sort of the fully embracing the evilness of his character, and to a point where it wasn't like taken seriously, but
Right.
he was like he was evil with all his heart.
Kind
And
of reminded me of an allegation of Beetlejuice and Johnny Depp's Pirate.
Oh,
Like a hybrid, like let's take a little bit of this and a little bit of that.
For me, for his characterization, but I was thinking more the attitude, and it was that the witchy poo from H.R. Puff and Stuff. If you ever go back, if you're at my age and remember that show, if you go back, the gal, gosh, and her name just escaped me, but she just fully embraced the ridiculousness of her villain and made it her own. And that's what I'm getting from his character, that he is just so delightful to watch, even when he is just messing everybody's day up and ruining every plan and just being horrible. But you can't fault him because he is just so great at it. So.
Right. You're like, good job.
Yeah, just the way
he's a real show stealer. Like
yes, and the poor sidekick guy. He's just
Chad.
Oh,
yeah.
poor Chad.
Oh, he felt,
And
he
Chad
kills him, and he'll wait. He'll be back. Don't worry about it. So poor guy. But yeah, I love the character so much, because he is just absolutely, with every fiber of his being, a bad guy. And he was so desperate to get back to that point of being a bad guy. When he had his powers taken away, he was still trying his best to get back and reclaim his evil. Yeah,
it's even self-mutilating his face at the end, to where he would look that way again. So
yeah.
Okay. Let's go. What about you?
I cannot remember the guy's name, but I really enjoyed the entire Lizzie and the vampire.
Sebastian. Yeah,
Sebastian.
Sebastian. I thought that one was just really kind of fun to watch. And I really liked that one because they did play with some of the tropes. Because, I mean, YA can be very tropolicious. So I like that one in the Minotaur because the Minotaur episode is just so tropolicious and they just embrace it and run with it.
Right, right.
So, but I did like watching is Lizzie crazy? And Lizzie's like, I'm not crazy. There's really somebody there. You just don't see them. I thought it was just a lot of fun. So.
Okay. Diana, what about you?
I have to say that I really, really liked Josie, Evil Josie.
Oh, yeah. In my notebook.
Dark.
The notebook is blue. It's not black. But anyway, yeah. In my notebook, I always wrote it down whenever it was about her. It was Dark Josie. But yeah.
So the thing about it is that, I have to think the actress must have been so relieved because Josie spent a season and a half with all kinds of moments where she's crying and she's not happy and she's frowning, and even when things go her way, they're not satisfying because her kind of glory and victory is removed from her in some way, or overshown or overshadowed or overstepped by other characters. And you feel bad for her, and that that stereotype that Lizzie falls into, Josie is just as stuck in that sort of those expectations. And when she gets to be evil Josie, the actress must have been like, oh, thank goodness this is a blast. And she really seemed to have a good a good handle on it, and it increased my respect for the actress. Because I was like, wow, it's like she's playing a totally different character, and it was awesome. But it also fit, and it was very believable that this is what Josie would do if she decided to not do the right thing. This is what she'd be like. And I did really enjoy watching her and watching the other characters still make efforts and try to not to hurt her, because everyone at that school is powerful. Josie's very powerful too, but she's kind of a one-trick pony, even with all the extra power that they gave her. And, other characters could mess with her. She was playing it very smart, and I appreciated that. I appreciated that the other characters couldn't just brute force her. They had to outsmart her if they didn't want to hurt her. And and that made it her antagonism more complex and a good storyline, and entertaining in a more subtle way than the Necromancer and the Minotaur.
Okay, Marks.
Well, I loved the Necromancer in season 1, so I was hoping he would come back, and he did. So that's great. So yeah, because I like Buffy, right, and Angel, and that's a character that could have come right out of that universe.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, and I like the whole what happened with him, his comeback and the Chad and everything. I thought that was all really great stuff. And I'm looking forward to see what happens with him more. But but yeah, Dark Josie was also quite good, and I always like seeing characters. I like seeing actors have to play different versions of their characters, like a Body Snatcher episode or Possession or something, or turn evil and stuff. And that's when you really see how good actor they are, or always how much range they have. And she did a fantastic job with that. But yeah. But I don't know if we're going to talk about favorite episode, but yeah, the Minotaur episode.
Yeah, we will get to that, actually.
Okay.
But yes, and one of the things you were saying about having to see the actor play either a different version of themselves or somebody else, and that brings to mind where, and I believe it was in the finale where Lizzie is trying to micromanage her own funeral, her fake funeral.
Mm-hmm.
That was so much fun.
Yeah. And when she is Hope, that was great. Just that is the fact that it was that Danielle Rose Russell having to be somebody else pretending to be her character. That was pretty great. So good for her.
Yeah.
And Anna, what about you?
So I have a soft spot for Kai.
Oh, good. I'm glad you brought Kai up. Okay.
So I love him. And so I really loved getting to see him and getting to see what he's been up to in the prison world. And I also really liked I think the question they brought up with the prison world about how they dealt with
Right.
the teens that they would like basically that were expelled. Like, what do you do with a vampire that you have to expel, right? So anyways, I thought it was really interesting, and I just love seeing Kai. But also Alexis Denisov, the headmaster.
Oh, yeah.
Like the whole, I mean, he's just he's so fun. But then also seeing him sort of tempt Josie along was fun. But yeah, Kai is my number one.
And you got to give Denisov credit when he was being Vardamus in the begining, who's not really Vardamus.
No.
But when he's playing that role, he went all in. He did not care. He was like, let's just play it. And that was great. I was thrilled to see him back. So, or not back as in that show, but just back on the screen. Yeah, that was great. So now we will get to the episode question. But even if it's not a particular episode, but if it's a storyline that you were particularly interested in or intrigued by this season, what was that for you? And Siska, we'll start with you this time.
Now I'm really torn because I really did enjoy the prison planet with what you do with the students who don't really conform. And is it right to do it? I enjoyed that. I think it would be fun to delve more into that, as well as the twins. The one that I keep really wanting to dig into is what's going on with the twins and this merge thing and stuff. And I don't know if there's more in the other show. Maybe I'd be more motivated. Okay, so knowing that, I might actually just go because I really want to know more about it. And so for me, those are that. But I'm sorry, that's such a short answer.
I mean, I thought that was a really intriguing idea, and I agree with you. I hope that as far as the prison world thing goes and well, of course, that's gone now, but I kind of had the feeling as though there weren't that many people there, that they had only sent.
They very much leave it with the feeling that there's only those 3 students, but there's got to be more than 3 students who just weren't successful by, the X-Men Salvatore standard kind of. So.
Right. Well, and the reason I think that there may have been that few is just because it seemed as though
it was an extreme solution for an extreme situation.
Right. Well, when Rick was talking about it, it was almost, as though, well, I made a mistake. And it was like he knew he'd made a mistake, but I think at that point they weren't really sure how to undo it either.
Yeah.
Was somebody else going to say something about that? I thought I heard somebody else.
I think it was.
No, I think what only thing was that, that maybe Kai did something to them. Maybe he tried to use them to get out if there were other ones in there.
Well, that could be. There was never any telling. Yeah,
and he wouldn't have told anybody about that. So
yeah, they're probably all hiding. So they went down.
Exactly, they were all taken out. And if anybody who is interested in Kai, then yes, you need to check out a couple of the later seasons of Vampire Diaries, because that's where, and that also has to do with the merge and that. So, Diana.
Okay, so I really, because I was trying to think about to try to find the names of the different episodes, but I think more than one episode, the thing that I keep remembering from the season the most is the I Need a Hero condom sequence. Does anybody remember that? So Landon It's the dance,
Oh,
and
yeah,
Lando
yeah.
Oh, okay.
is frantically trying to find a condom
Yeah. Yeah.
to the and the music that's going on is "I Need a Hero" from Flashdance. I think that song was, and it was hilarious. He's like running through the hall and just his socks and slipping on the floor, and just and this 80s kind of like almost workout music kind of in the background as he's doing this. So that was hilarious. And how that actually ended with them not going there and deciding not to. That was also it felt very genuine.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very appropriate in a YA story also. And I was pleased with that. I was like, yeah, that makes sense. But the rest of the episode, it was another episode where there was a dance. I mean, this is another YA trope is it's the dance or one of the dances. I write them, and sometimes my husband's like, "What's with all this music?" And I say, "Oh, I'm writing another dance." And now he knows. He says, "Oh,
you have to have
you have all the tabs open for YouTube. Oh, you're writing another dance."
Yeah, exactly.
But what I like about it is it also, and I kind of believe that YA, and maybe it's because I was a hermit growing up, so I spent a lot of my time reading. So I role modeled in some ways less what I saw on TV because I only watched like Star Trek and Sequest and stuff like that when I was a kid. But was the fact that it showed mature, age appropriate, so not like overly mature like adult, but still this is behavior that I would not mind seeing more people, regardless of age, role modeling. And I'm just going to say, because I do think there's a certain level of responsibility when you write some of these or read these, or you're going to hand them to a kid or somebody who's an impressionable person, that it's nice to see some of that. And so.
True, yeah. It doesn't automatically mean that they are going to go there if they start going there.
Yeah, and also just that they're not all angsty airheads.
Right. You have to allow that that's part of it. So yeah, but I agree with you. Yeah.
I finally remembered the episode I wanted to mention was "This Christmas Was Surprisingly Violent."
Oh, I love that one. That's one of my
title.
Yeah, that was probably one of my favorites, certainly from this season. Anyway,
it was awesome, and I'm Jewish. I loved it.
Oh, there you go. Marks, what about you?
I'm sorry, what was the question again? I've lost track.
Do you have a favorite episode or a favorite storyline this season?
Oh, yes. Okay. Yeah, episode 5, Screw Endgame. I really like that one quite a bit. I just like the whole, the video game aspect. I made a web series a long time ago about people stuck in a virtual reality type world. That was a game. So I was like, so I love the concept anyway. Yeah, in 80s. Nostalgia to it, and then a loop of what's it called? Anyway, Edge of Tomorrow or whatever, or
like that Groundhog Day loop.
Yeah. And that was a really great combination. I think definitely a very unique way of doing the Minotaur legend I've never seen before. So
right.
So that was one of my favorite standout ones in general. And then, but also anything that has Santa Claus fighting and stuff is going to win a lot of points.
Right. I mean, and just some of the little details from that episode where when the Krampus starts after Santa Claus has come out of the bag, and Krampus is rising back up after we think he's dead, after Hope has shot him. Anyway, he gets up, and Rick says to Santa, "You better watch out." I mean, just little things like that. I mean, were just great. I just love that. But yeah, that was a fun episode for sure.
Yeah.
And the cool thing about the whole Minotaur episode that you were talking about is also that it kind of cemented the bond, or it changed in a way Hope and Lizzie's relationship, which needed to change. You can't have them constantly at each other's throats and not expect to see them as being, worthy protagonists. I guess you could say, people that you want to root for.
Yeah, she was a bit much sometimes in season 1 for me, and season 2 did a great job adding more depth to her character. So
Yeah,
exactly, and she gets some of the best lines.
yeah.
Anna, what about you?
So I've been like scrolling through the episode list, trying to decide. There's so many good episodes. I really liked, obviously, the ones I already mentioned, that Necromancer's background.
Oh yeah, his backstory.
episode, and then the prison world. I also really liked Cupid.
Oh yeah.
Fun. And I mean fun, but
Yeah, those teeth. Oh my God. Yeah.
but and then I really like sort of the almost like Alice in Wonderland sort of vibe of Josie's head in the finale.
Yeah.
The fairy tale world. That was fun too. I don't know that I can pick just one, but all of those.
All of those. That all sounds good. Kristen.
yeah. The same for me. The Christmas and then the evil Cupid episode. I like both of
Cupid
those.
the Cupid who wasn't actually Cupid.
Yeah.
That was definitely a good one. And that when you were talking about the fairy tale aspect, Anna, of the finale, it was it was cool because it was kind of a fairy tale mashup.
Yeah.
That was the thing about the breadcrumbs.
Yeah.
When Hope first gets there and she's following breadcrumbs, and then the pig admits to eating them. That was good.
Yeah.
I ate them. So that was, I thought, I was amused by that. So now we'll go from something amusing to something a little more serious. It's the 9th episode from this season, so just past the halfway point, when Rick and Sebastian are talking. Rick tells Sebastian that the school that exists to protect the students from the world. And Sebastian's comment is, well, it kind of seems to me, or it looks to me as though it's the other way around. That really you're doing the opposite. And Rick replies that it's really a balance. And which do you feel? Which of those two approaches, or even the middle of the road balance response, which do you think really dominates the narrative of the show itself, at least in this second season? And Diana, we'll start with you.
So I feel like school is a place where you teach. You're supposed to teach the students how to protect themselves and how to be in the world. Like one of the things I wrote in my outline for the last book in Hawthorne Academy, they have I have an entire header that says True Prep. So it's like a magical prep school, but the prep, and it's about how everything under that heading was about what is really preparing them for the world, and are they prepared when they leave? How much of that came from their formal education, and how much of that came from their interactions with each other and their interpersonal reactions with the staff? And I feel like in the 9th episode, when they address that, I watched that and I said, oh yeah, because there never is one answer to that question. What is the purpose of a school for magical people? Is it to protect the world from them? Is it to protect them from the world? Is it to teach them how to function in the world? Is it to teach them how to function together to endure the world? What is it? Well, it's all of the above. And I really feel like when you have any magical school story, some things that happen at school, and just like any mundane school, some of those things prepare you, and some of those things are detriment, and you have to get over them after school. I mean, I was talking to a friend about Harry Potter, and they said all of them are going to need counseling for PTSD. After they graduate, they're not prepared for the world. They need therapy now. And I'm like, well, yeah, and it's sort of just that's also part of, I think, what's going on at the Salvatore School too. Are these kids going to learn to lean on each other? Like, which of them are going to learn how to not be islands and make a support network, and which of them are going to fail at that and then need extra help or not be prepared, and as we've seen, risk getting thrown into alternate dimensions by themselves with the worst of the worst. Like,
they can't do that anymore now, though.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, but they do it the first time. It means there's a possibility.
They could do something like that again, or who knows if there's not some dimensional door, or
Right.
So I think it's all of the above.
Okay. Marks.
Yeah, a similar view. I mean, it reminds me a little bit of, in some ways, like X-Men, maybe more than Harry Potter, because it's not just, it's about them learning how to control their darker urges so they can live in society rather than being a monster in society, I guess.
And they also take math class.
Yeah.
that is the real world skills.
Mm-hmm.
Still, they're not just ignoring. So. And
then also it's a way to help all these the three different main branches or communities, or however they're called, to not maybe fall back in traditional, rival roles, like where the werewolves hated all the vampires and wanted to kill them all, and witches, hated everybody and stuff. So it kind of brings it together, or tries to bring them together too. So there is that. But that is, that one episode brought up a good question, though, is like, what if one becomes a Ripper and there's no fixing them? What if one just doesn't care and just wants to kill people, and do you kill them? Because to you, they feel like kids, teenagers and stuff. You get to know them. It's hard to do that to them.
Right.
And, but what do you do? Is there a prison for them or what? So it's probably something that's going to come up again in the future. So.
That's true. They're not going to be the only ones who, mess up, as we've seen. Anna.
So I definitely think it's both. But I think when Alaric designed the school, it was more of it was about protecting his girls, right? So I think when he designed the curriculum and how the school functions, it was all about protecting the students. But I think obviously over the years he's had to adjust and think about other things, and then that's where the protecting the world has come in. But I think it's almost like curriculum and after school activities. The curriculum is protecting the kids. We're going to give you all of these skills. We're going to teach you how to be the best witch that you can be. We're going to teach you how to be the best vampire you can be. We're going to protect you as much as we can. And then the after school activities are okay, the world needs protection from you. I think it's sort of this balance of extracurricular and curricular.
Okay. One way to look at it.
Yeah.
Kristen.
Yeah. All of the above. And I think Alaric is coming to terms too of how much he needs to tell the students about how he was kind of had safeguards built in for himself of what to do in case of an emergency. And that I'm wondering if that's going to come up in season 3 some more, about how he was kind of had these little traps and safeguards built in that if something goes really horribly wrong, he can take people down. And that's never going to be an easy conversation with the students who thought, hey, he was here for us and he's got, these weapons.
There's a trust issue.
Right.
Yeah. So that whole
huge.
Yeah. So I'm wondering if they're going to go into that some more in season 3.
Especially considering his background and where he came from, if you go back.
Right. And the thing is that he is in fact a human running that could at any moment be actually overpowered by any of those students, pretty much. And the only way he can protect himself is to have some of those safeguards. But you're right. He rides the fine line of trying to make it seem as though everything's okay all the time in terms of how he feels about his own safety. But you gotta wonder how safe does he really feel?
Yeah, it's a shame he doesn't have that resurrection ring anymore. That, like when I went back to watch Vampire Diaries, like, oh, that's a great ring. But it's not in the Legacies. What happens to it?
Right. Siska.
Well, I think it's got to be a bit of all of it, but I think some of it's also, to be honest, the boarding school is the perfect environment for it. Because can you imagine the academic load of working? So, like, some of it, you can probably mix some of like the mixology and the alchemy into your chemistry class, but because they are in theory, from what it seems, trying to prepare these students to go on to secondary schools, grad schools, colleges. So they still have to have the academics on top of the discipline learning, on top of the magic learning. That's just like, I feel more for the witches, I think, in that academic kind of an environment than anything, because they have all these things they have to learn for this, then this, then this, then this. And oh yeah, by the way, don't forget to study for your SATs.
Right.
So
Yeah,
I
exactly.
really feel for them and on it. And I do see there's points where I see kind of almost like a soldier in a lyric with how he deals with some of it. And
good point. Yeah.
and I guess as a vet, I see it, and I've seen that kind of psychology where you're playing, and Carol has seen, I'm also a chemist as a day job, and she has seen me post things like, yeah, I got acid splashed in my face today, and are you okay? I'm like, what? It was just a little bit of acid.
Just
okay.
a little bit.
It was a lot. So because you get almost inured to it after a certain point, and you just get used to it, and it's how do you cope with that stress level mechanism, and you can either shut down or you go his way, which is to learn everything he can about everything and then try and build a better world. There's a lot of social engineering that he's trying to arrange in this, of forcing these kids to come together into a school where all of a sudden he's trying to actually not even just protect the world, but he's trying to build a new world where these three very different, essentially, species can coexist among each other, but also with humans. So it's very daring, ambitious project.
Yeah, and the three big groups that we had, and we have a fairy and a phoenix.
Yeah,
so,
and he's dealing with them at their most dangerous time because they have all these powers and abilities, but they don't know really what they're doing with them yet.
Well, and it does bring to mind, how they have their games they do a couple times a year with the Mystic Falls High School. Yes. And, they're trying to, they're interacting with them so they know what it's like to interact with other people their age that aren't like them. But it does kind of bring up, you wonder what's the ultimate goal of the school. As you were saying, Siska, they want, they're trying to they're having to learn how to live in the world, or how to function in a human world. And is that really the goal of it? Because you can't protect, it's designed to be through 12th grade and then they're gone. And that,
I mean, I think that they have to realize that eventually in this world, they're going to get caught with the way social media is and everything else.
Yeah.
Just seriously, just look. Yeah, you name a month you can think of somebody who, like, when I lived in Savannah, there was a group of kids who were posting on social media and couldn't believe they got caught for breaking into people's houses, but they were posting on social media they were doing it. I mean, there's just a certain level, and just imagine also how hard it's got to learn. You have to learn to keep your those barriers separate between in a world where half the people I know post pictures of their lunch.
Right. I would love some graduates of the school, because I mean
that would be awesome to see them come back.
Because to see like what because I'm sure he's been running it since the girls were little, right? So there has to have been some that have graduated. I would love to see them come back and like where they
We've
are.
seen the dropouts. Let's see the graduates.
Yeah, exactly.
I wonder sometimes, are they hiding the graduates in the faculty? Because there's clearly a lot more teachers than we actually see on the show. So maybe they have some of them, they just hire them. Maybe he hires them right away. Maybe the ones he thinks won't be able to keep their secret very well, he might just hire them. Hey, look, you were our best people at spell work. Why don't you teach it?
Yeah, but I think there's always going to be people who want to escape and spread their wings and not be there. So
have never, like, maybe in season 3
of them, but there's definitely going to be some that will go off.
That's kind of an idea for season 3 episode. It'd be a reunion.
Yeah, I'm sure that some of them are probably doing recruitment essentially for him.
Oh yeah, that
could be. But the school did. Now it is true that the school was formed when Josie and Lizzie were, right about beginning school age. So if they started with younger students, but they still had, some older when it began, right, there would be graduates somewhere. So that is a good question. We'll have to, to hope.
We know Jade was an older student because Josie was saying she looked up to her.
Yeah, and she was prepping for med school when she discovered she had the problem with the blood and being a ripper. Yeah. So, I mean, definitely some of them should at least be in the workforce by now of some sort.
Yeah.
So yeah, good idea for, if not for season 3, if it goes further than that, then we should eventually hear about those folks. Now, my next question has to do with some of the former Vampire Diaries and original cast members, but since some of you haven't seen those shows, you still would have, or not all of it anyway, you still would have, you've heard mention made of some people from the past, especially from Hope. She'll talk about, she was talking about Vincent, and we had Freya, who was Hope's aunt, who we saw in an episode this season. And what my question was actually about, who else would you like to see? Who do we think that they're kind of missing out on not including so far? And I know what my answer is, but I will certainly let other people talk about that. But we will also add on to that for those of you who don't feel as though you have enough background on some of the other shows, that what are some other kind of dangling plot lines, I guess, or things that you would like to see get answered that you feel as though we did not really get to see much of, or that they didn't finish out, an explanation of, or a story about this season. And Marks, we'll start with you.
I mean, I haven't finished Vampire Diaries, so maybe I'll be spoiled. But if as long as they didn't kill the Salvatore brothers, then they would be great. And so the actual creators of the school and such, and stars of Vampire Diaries. So I would like to see them, or at least know more about what's going on with them. I think I haven't watched enough originals to know, and I know that Klaus, that actor, doesn't want to come back. So and supposedly, well, it says in the show he died. So
right, that's no secret, yeah.
But that doesn't stop you in a fantasy show.
Yeah. No, that's true. Because
you're more likely to come back with a vengeance after you die. For Dangling's plot lines, I can't really think. I'm trying to remember. I'll think about that for a minute. If I come up with something, I'll let you know.
Okay, sure. Anna.
Bonnie.
Yes.
I think would be great. Mm-hmm. I feel like there was so much. I'm trying to remember who's alive and who's dead too, because I haven't watched Diaries in a while. So I'm like, who's alive? But yeah, I think Bonnie would be great. I think it would be, and they did bring her. Was she in a part Didn't they mention her in season 1? Maybe.
Well, they've mentioned her, but she's never been on the show.
Shown up. Okay, yeah. They've been.
No, we had what's his name, Matt,
Yeah.
the sheriff, in a few episodes in season 1, and apparently now he's the mayor.
Yeah.
In season 3, but we didn't see him.
Yeah. Well, I think Bonnie would be a great mentor for the twins, just because of all of her history with witchcraft and all the stuff that she's been through. I think that it would be really interesting to see her. But.
Yeah, and besides, Kai Josie tricked Kai with the whole Bennett blood idea. So yeah, Bonnie situation. So, Kristen.
I'd be struggling with both of these questions. I guess Matt would be the only one that I'd say I'd like to see more of, or have him come back. But for plot lines, I just I don't know. I can't think of anything that I feel like
didn't get finished,
missing yet.
Mm-hmm. So. Okay.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. Siska.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I was thinking the guidance counselor who came in, the British guidance counselor. I would like to see more of what goes on with her. I forgot that episode was in this season because I really enjoyed that one, the group therapy discussion, which I thought was a really great way. And I thought whoever wrote it had a really good touch on some of group therapy and how that can go, and some of the neat treatments that they've come out with doing VR therapy for PTSD and stuff and desensitization.
Oh, right.
So I thought it was really, once again, my background colors my view on it. So, but I thought it was really great, and I thought it was a good way to bring up the topic of mental health with kids.
Mm-hmm. A good point. Yes.
I want to add something.
Okay.
So, I would also like to see some of the Crescent Wolves. From
Haley, that was the mom. Haley is Hope's mom.
Yeah. So, they're like, Hope has to have some cousins or something out there that school. You know, that might be fun. But new characters that are from that world, not necessarily people that we have actually seen before. Okay. I think that would be fun.
Yeah, it would be. Yeah, they would have a little bit of history, but not in a way that we would necessarily recognize the individual.
Right, and I think that this show is good at that. About taking things from the other shows and making it its own thing.
Right. Diana.
They have to do something with Caroline. She's been missing for 2 seasons now, and it's just glaring. Does she not care about her kids that she raised? Or she only cares about Lizzie? Is it that because
did she even raise them at any point?
Well, she carried them.
Okay.
She was their surrogate.
She was their surrogate mother.
So raised them.
So she birthed them and she cared for them as small children. And, for legal reasons, she's technically still an element in Alaric's life. And he's starting this budding relationship with Sheriff Mack. And if she came back to town, just as that started to get going, that could be delightfully awkward and entertainingly awkward. And I would really like to see that next season if they're going to have Alaric, in a romance, have his life be complicated by the mother of his children coming back.
Because he doesn't have any other problems.
But again, this is the whole business of I'm living this magical life and I have all these magical problems. Oh my God, the mundane world just smacked me in the face. And that's a big part and parcel of what's so interesting, I think, about urban and contemporary fantasy.
I like to call it being kidnapped by mundania.
Yeah.
I want to see supernatural IRS agents come there and audit them.
No. It's the after though,
That
right?
would be
She's not interested in being.
So our records say that you've used this much magic and you were allocated that much magic. It's like the librarians and magicians all over again.
Mhm.
right. Yeah, you're gonna get billed for how much you use. Yeah, that, and I would agree with the whole Caroline thing, and I think that it would be, awesome to have her show up. But I mean, the whole idea, for what we've been told in the show, is the reason that she's not there is because she has been out searching the world for at least since the beginning of the show, which has only been a couple of years, that she's been out searching for some kind of a remedy to the merge so that the girls don't have to go through that. And I that was the reason given, and because they talk about, Lizzie and Josie get to they spend the summer with her, or
Mhm.
something. Or else they go off and they visit her somewhere when it's a school break. But yeah, to actually have her be part of the show, I you know I I'm not sure. I mean, I would love to see it, but I don't know if it would work in with the dynamic now that they're 2 seasons in. It would be trying to work somebody who is that significant into it might be, pose
If it
some.
was maybe a couple of episodes like Kai had, like the two-part like sort of deal where she comes
Right.
into town with something to see if it's going to work, and they
Right.
try it and then it doesn't work and it's back to the drawing board in Eastern Europe or wherever she might go. So
I feel like they're gonna have to at some point bring her in. But I don't think. I think it's a thing with the actress, right? She doesn't want to be a regular.
I don't have any idea. I haven't looked into that. I haven't heard anything one way or the other. So there's no telling. But I agree. I think if they even brought her back just for a couple, that would be nice. Well, now my last question for you guys has to do about just with like little touches that you see from the show. Like, what are some of the things that you appreciate, whether they're visual or something to do with the characters? And I'm going to start, and this, just so you know the kind of thing I'm talking about. I really appreciate the role that the actual physical library plays in the school. That it has. I mean, again, the Buffy, some Buffy similarities there, but I think that's a kind of a cool thing that they do that makes it feel. I mean, it gives you that history in terms of not just the literal history that they're getting out of the books, but it makes it feel as though it's part of the larger, even the urban fantasy show genre, I guess you could say. It makes it seem as though it's got that spot. And Anna, we'll start with you. Do you have anything like that?
I like that the vampires hang out in the kitchen because that's where the blood is. Like all of the scenes with like Caleb and MG, they're always in the kitchen because there's blood in the kitchen.
Right,
and I think that's funny. And I don't know. I think it's like a cute little quirk that the vampires are always in the blood.
Okay, good point. I hadn't really thought about that one, but you're right, Kristen.
I like the fact that they use a sense of humor very well. So it's not such a dark and heavy type of show. To me, it's more like if the urban fantasy version of Legends of Tomorrow. So
that's
they just go they run for it. They go for it. You have a Christmas episode, but then you have a battle, an epic battle with Santa Claus and the cramp, and they fully embrace every aspect of the ridiculous or the humor or the over the top characters, but they make it work and they have fun with it. And I really appreciate that it's not a dark and depressing sort of show like it could be. They have the heartfelt moments where you really connect, but they don't drag you down. There's the element of humor, and let's just have fun telling these stories. And so that's kind of what I really appreciate about this series.
Good point. I agree. Siska.
I was gonna say I really like the fact that it's not just all teen angst. I have been known to call the Kids on the Teen Angst Network. So,
You're not alone. You're not alone. You're not alone to
No,
call them.
yeah, and I kind of skipped the teen. Well, I didn't skip the teen angst. I had plenty of it, I'm sure. But I avoided it for a long time in my entertainment. So, because I found it very annoying. They do a good job of balancing that. So, yes, they are angsty at points. They also kind of have a good reason to be typically when they're doing it. And I've enjoyed that aspect of it a lot. And it is a careful thing to tread because teen angst does sell very well. It just also drives anybody with a brain nuts after a while. So I've enjoyed that a lot. And I know it sounds really weird, but I like the high school rivalry.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It is very realistic. And so I enjoyed that. So particularly because there is no sister or brother school it's the only school like it in the world.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed that a lot. I thought it was really good. And the campus did anybody ever see Dead Poet Society?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so Dead Poet Society is actually a school. It's St. Andrews up in Delaware, somewhere. I don't know. My dad went there. But it's actually a school, and it kind of has that same vibe to me. And I like that. So it does feel like it is a real school that it was built at a place that may not have started as a school, but has definitely become one. And the rooms really do look like that. Don't ever watch Dead Poet Society with my dad. He will drive you nuts because he'll go, that's not that. By the way, apparently where the English classes are in Dead Poet Society is wrong. That's where the math classes were. I've had to hear that every year for 10 years.
Well, and what you bring up, all the things that you're mentioning seem to have to do with authenticity.
Yeah.
And that's the real challenge of urban fantasy, if nothing else. I mean, when you're talking about authenticity of the real world, that you have to be able to meld those two things. And I think they've done a great job of it so far.
I know we've already talked, I've mentioned like 100 episodes. I noticed I was like, I don't remember anything from the show. And now I'm just,
now everything's tumbling back.
The football rivalry.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It was I mean, it's just so realistic, but it is hilarious. Like, cause they want to be able to use their powers cause they want to win cause they are terrible at football. But in that part, that was hilarious. Anyways. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and Vardamus is certainly trying to egg them on. And I'm looking at my notebook. Yeah, he calls it the annual rite of American excess. Yeah. The homecoming stuff. So yeah, that was pretty funny. Diana, what about you?
I really love that there's so much diversity in the cast. It never made sense to me that the only people with magic or the only people vampires ever turned or the only people who ever became werewolves or turned into other animals they're not diverse. Like
they're all
just
your
so
Eastern European type. Yeah, they're even Hispanic. Yeah, no, I get it. But the one thing I like is to follow you up is it doesn't feel forced. It doesn't feel like you're going, where's the Excel sheet? We need to go through our checklist.
Right.
Sure. Yeah.
They even do it with age. They have younger students at the school. Right.
I want an episode all about the little kids.
I do. I would love to see the little kids have to do something because something's only affected people who are in or past puberty, and all the grade school kids have to stop whatever it is.
Oh, that's a good idea.
That would be really cool. The one thing that they do lack in terms of diversity is they do not have any elderly characters. But I looked at their cast initially, but before the show was coming out, I was looking at pictures from of the actors that they had cast, and I was like, wow, this looks like it's going to be a really cool show. There's like vampires who are of color. There's a werewolf and it's just like this is great, so I was excited before it
For the
came out.
CW though, people in their 40s are elderly. So.
Yeah. Another thing is, how do you elderly when vampires don't age?
Right.
Yeah.
Werewolves age very, very slowly,
Mhm.
which is, I don't think they've done anything about.
Bonnie's grandma. Come on, get her back in there.
Yeah, but I mean, it would be great, but there's not a lot of elderly really, and it's they live in a very dangerous world
Mhm.
where, I mean, once again, it's kind of like soldiers. The old soldiers are either really smart, really or really lucky, or they don't get to be old.
Mhm.
So,
right.
and it's the same thing kind of in that kind of world. So
They have a whole town that they walk through, and I've never once seen an elderly person even as an extra.
you're right. They could have a human extra old people.
And they have that whole other school that Aller was at the begining of the season.
Yeah, the
There
local high school.
was no 60-year-old Spanish teacher or something at that school.
I'm trying to remember. Did they not show somebody? I thought that they had a couple of people that were just kind of background characters that were. But I may be wrong about that. But
I don't know. But I mean, Mark is right. 40 is geriatric in the CW.
I mean, unless it's Legends of Tomorrow, and you had you had Firestorm, and we had Stein.
I would say he's the exception. Definitely.
Yeah, I was sorry to see him go, to be honest.
I
And
love his
Mark,
story arc. It was so sweet. I cried when he died, and I don't cry normally.
Marks, what about you?
To echo a few things, I like the tone because I like it could be really funny, but also very serious at times, and that it doesn't focus just on teen, relationship drama. I like that they mix it up. I think that's one of the strengths is that do have some adult characters doing stuff too with the kids. It's not all just kids or all teenagers.
Some of the adults are actually adults, not just teenagers.
Yeah. So I think that's great. And then, and I just love their sense of humor. Like they're very genre aware of the tropes and stuff, and they play fun with that. And they have a lot of little things, right? And I like the little touches. Like I love that every episode title is a line of dialogue in the actual show, right? So it's a nice little touch.
Yes, yeah. I like that too. And I got to where I'm my notebook. When I'm writing down the episode title, I'm like, okay. So I wonder what that means in terms of who's going to say it, that kind of thing. So that's a nice surprise. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like those touches as well. And we will soon find out what's going on. The show comes back on the 21st. So, so everybody be prepared. We'll find out what's going on with Hope and with Landon. Presumably they will get that figured out fairly quickly since they're both major characters. They can't leave them both comatose for too long. That would not be good form. And I would like to thank you guys for all joining me. And we've had a couple of people watching with us. We will have many more people that will watch this later, and we will thank them as well. But I also want to tell you about a couple of other things that we have coming up. Next week's panel is going to be on Nancy Drew. The first season of Nancy Drew, that show actually comes back on the 20th, I believe. So the idea was to get those done prior to the new season beginning. And Diana will be joining me on that panel as well. So looking forward to that. And then later this month on the 26th, I'll be posting an author interview with Gene C. Stein. So those are the things to look forward to. We have in February, I have a few different things going on, but the two fan panels, there will be a Ragnarok fan panel at the beginning of February. And then at the end, we will begin our Supernatural Rewind series where we go back to season 1. We will be doing it's not going to be every episode or every week, a monthly review of some of the earlier seasons. And we will get through probably up to season 7 before this year's Dragon Con commences. So hopefully people will want to join us for that. But I do want to thank everybody who was here this evening. You guys have been great. I hope you've had a good time. And I would like to thank everybody who has watched or will watch this evening. So thank you very much, everyone. And if you would like to wave goodbye, we are going to.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.